Gary with Junk Removal and Easy Go Junk, and I'm with Bill Shomphe. I hope I got that right, Bill. And
Yep.
he's with Hallway Junk Removal in Massachusetts, in the Boston
Yep.
area.
Yep. Right outside. Boston's right outside our direct market. So we definitely do a lot of work out that way.
Very cool. So I'm going to ask you pretty much what I ask everybody. Number one is, what got you in this? How did you start?
Yeah. So it's kind of a crazy story. Like a lot of people during the COVID-19 pandemic, I had been in the collision industry for 15 years doing insurance-based auto body work as a career profession for a long time since I was, in high school. And during COVID, when that all started to happen, I was furloughed, which was great getting those unemployment checks, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to pay my bills. I have a family, kids, mother, house, all that stuff. So when that happened, I kind of was scrambling because, I'd always been on top of my stuff. And that was the first time in my life I never had a job or had income, aside from, those $800 checks or whatever the case. So I did own a 72 Nova that I had built. I owned a boat and then a Harley, and kind of decided to part ways with them. And when I was looking for a side gig, a lot of my friends are successful in like the landscaping industry. And I had thought about it, and it didn't really seem to be what I wanted to do. There's a lot of competition in that time. And so I actually sold those vehicles for a 1-ton Mason dump truck, not knowing that I was going to kind of get into the junk removal stuff. I actually bought a set of plow setup on it. And I did a couple jobs, just word of mouth and kind of just throwing it out there, and it started to take off. And, it was at that point, it was probably June, July of 2020. And I remember starting to say, hey, I'm making some good money on some of these jobs. What can we do to keep after it? And I had actually found Thumbtack, which was the first kind of lead gen we started using for jobs. And I'll never forget the first job I had on there. Ended up being like a $3,500 clean out at some biochem lab. And I had rallied some guys together, and we cleaned out this facility. And that was when I was like, all right, well, this is what I'm gonna do now. So I had kind of as the fall came back, I was working for Ford Motor Company, and they had allowed us to come back to work. We had enough work coming in the door. So the jobs kept coming in with the junk removal stuff. So I was going out before work, on my coffee break, lunch break, after work. I was just scrambling because I wanted to keep up with the business. Winter came, junk removal slowed down, especially in my area. I'm up in New England, like you said, outside of Boston. So the accidents started happening more. So I was more at my job. I ended up finding a friend and sending him out on the odd jobs just to keep the business fresh and doing whatever jobs were coming in. And once spring came around, I think it was March 2021, I ended up leaving my job. I thought that I had missed the boat really in the beginning. When I started, I didn't really take it as a serious thing. It was just a side hustle.
Right.
Spring came around, and I was ready to go all in. I'd already lost my job for the better part of a year and saw that I could make it at some facet. So when springtime came, I left Ford, and I kind of hoped for the best, and the floodgates really opened. I started getting involved with our SEO, our market presence online. And from there, it was just wild. I think the first week I quit my job, I did my month's salary in that first week. And then the second week it did the same thing. So I put the nail in the coffin and just jumped full head on into this.
Real quick here, just to let you know my background, because you were talking about the landscaping, and I built a landscape company in California. I sold that. I moved
Yep.
to Florida, built one there, and sold that to actually a very large company. I was blessed. But the money difference is unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
It's
And good for you too for having an exit strategy. I feel especially
absolutely
in business, you really got to know where you want to take things to,
that's
and
right.
what the goal in mind is. So, but yeah, I know I had that 1-ton dump truck, and I plowed through the winter with it, and I had ended up picking up was about a 10-yard dump trailer in the beginning, because I was like, okay, well, we need to be able to do a couple things. So I'd run the dump trailer on a pickup truck and run the mason dump. And then I think it was April, not even 6 full months, I'd say 7 full months in, I bought a switch and go truck. Inevitably saw that we needed more volume. We needed to be able to do what those two trucks were doing in one truck.
Yep.
And I'm glad I got into it early, because trucks now are impossible to come by, let alone for a decent
Almost
price.
impossible. It's 5, 6, 8 months out.
Yeah, and you're paying way over MSRP at this point. I mean, granted, there's a lot of benefits to overpaying if you're in the business and you know the tax codes and things like that, but still the wait time and what you're paying is sticker shock for sure.
And this is one of the things I admire about you, is you're always looking forward, aren't you? You're never looking backwards. You're always seeing where you can take this company, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic you bring that up too, because I always have conversations with people close to me in my network that when I was younger, we weren't low income or anything like that, but I knew I wanted a different life than what I had been brought up. I think a lot of people do, especially entrepreneurs. And I'd always set the goal. I was going to make 6 figures a year. I was going to have a house by this age. I was going to do this for my children. And I did that stuff really young, and not wealthy or anything like that, but just had a good blue collar living. And I realized in my mid-20s that I was aiming too low. I was never setting, unattainable goals. And a lot of people tell you, don't set unattainable goals, set things that you can reach. And if you're a driven person, I don't think that's good advice all the time, because attainable goals, you reach them and then you kind of just plateau, or you don't really think about what's more. So now, I like to set these unattainable goals, or what seem unattainable, and have little micro goals along the way. And it seems to work out well.
Let's say the unattainable goal is 7 trucks,
Right.
trucks, etc. Well, your micro steps would be 1 truck, 2 trucks,
Right.
then managing the employees, etc., and getting those all ready to go, and with that goal still in mind to get those 5 more trucks. But
Yeah.
if you were to blast through that, there are so many things that you would miss that,
Oh, yeah,
and it would kill you.
And it's a huge thing too is the mistakes. It took me a long time in life in general to start looking at mistakes as tools. You really don't know the ins and outs of your trade or what you're doing until you mess up. And if you're fortunate enough to have other people mess up and you can absorb that information,
Absolutely.
great, it'll avoid some bumps in the road for you. But really, I mean, underbidding those jobs, doing just not analyzing the work, or just experiencing a loss, a break even, or anything like that, is a huge benefit if you're really an entrepreneur. I mean, that's really how you're going to learn the ins and outs of your business and understand what it takes to make it, and how to actually make money.
So it's funny you say that, because I've always claimed the fame not to be the brightest, candle in the shop. But the one thing I do know, and I knew this at an early age, I don't have to hit a proverbial wall at 100 miles an hour to know that it will destroy me.
Correct.
And as soon as I figured that out, it's exactly what you were saying, is that, wait a second. And this is one of the reasons I connect with you, Bill, and Joseph and Matt over in California, and all these people. I connect with them because they have hit certain walls that I haven't hit, that I am going to hit. And if they can save me 1 to 10 steps of hurting myself, hurting my business, man, I'm all for it. And that's why I'm doing these here, is so when people watch this, they can learn also, not from me, but from people like you that are many steps ahead of where I am. You're my unattainable goal where you're sitting right now. And that is really cool. And so those become, like you say, learning tools. And people really miss that step, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And networking, like you said, that's important, whether you're in California, Massachusetts, Texas, wherever. I work closely with guys in my direct market. I reach out to competitors who might be getting into the market, just for a bunch of different reasons. I don't want to see anyone struggle. I think there's plenty of work out there, but I also don't want to devalue what we bring to the table in this industry. I feel it's important to let those guys know, hey, you're probably not charging enough, or hey, this is what the rates are in our area. if you want to survive. And, in the beginning, when I was doing it on the side, I didn't have the insurances. I didn't have, the marketing that we had. All these things weren't really on my radar in the beginning. And as I started to become a more legal and legitimate business, you realize how much things really do cost, and what the service is worth. I've done plenty of jobs that I didn't make any money on, and it took me a little bit to realize that I'd rather lose a bid and lose $0 and make $0 than to do a job and break even or lose money. So really figuring out what clientele I wanted to target and actually secure jobs.
Say that again, because and I'm going to give you a chance to do that, because one of the things I've noticed, not only with the landscaping, that learning curve is a real deal. And so basically, go ahead and say that again, because I think that is one of the most wise business tips that anybody getting into junk removal or anything else is really important. Don't undersell yourself.
Yeah, not every customer is your customer. We get a lot of leads coming in all the time. And in the beginning, I just wanted every job just for the exposure, and that might have done something for us on a minuscule scale. But very shortly in, I realized, I'd rather not do the job and lose $0 than to take a job on and break even or felt like I lost.
Right.
Because after the dump fees, after the labor involved, paying your guys, the fees with the trucks, it was just, it'd be great to land certain jobs. They might seem easy, but when you do the math and you really know your numbers,
right.
It's not worth turning the truck on some of those jobs. It's not worth, maybe you can do a deal with someone who's like a realtor in your network who's going to funnel you a lot of jobs, and you might take a hit up front just to get on the back end. But the average customer, it just didn't make sense to us to take every single job and make them happy financially when we know the service costs. It's not a service everyone needs or wants. They can gladly go take their items to donation or to the recycling facilities themselves. But in a case where you're closing on a house in a week, or, you have tenants you're evicting or whatever the case, they want this done fast. So it's, someone once told me fast, easy, cheap, pick two. Fast, good, cheap, pick two. So, it's one of those things where you're bringing a service to the customer, and if they want to pay for that service, they will.
It's kind of like landscaping, man. Everybody can cut their own yard. And
right.
I mean, that's the reality, right? And then so you have to do that whole dollar cost thing.
What's your time worth? What's your time worth, really?
That's exactly it. And so I say you picked really well as far as the two, because I think the landscaping right now, you'd be, because it's non-existent unless you're doing snow blowing. And you know how fun that is.
Yeah, we plow. We have a 20-inch plus storm coming tonight, so it's got a lot on the plate for the winter. But we slow down. I mean, I think even in some of the warmer markets, I feel January, February is slower for a lot of guys. I know guys in my direct market right now that are killing it. Plug Away and McHugh Junk Removal, they're in my market. Those are great guys. They're always staying busy. But for me, it's weird. We have our commercial accounts to keep us busy enough. This is my first actual year full time experiencing a winter where the income's solely on my plate. I don't have a W-2 job to get paid. So it's interesting, going through that and understanding, how to manage your money or how to manage your time and what you can be doing to generate work in the off season for when the hot season comes in. But yeah, it's thankfully it is going to snow though, so we are getting some money falling from the sky.
When you say that, I know one of the things I picked up, I knew this intuitively because of the business. I've been working for myself for over 30 years, and I'm not bragging about that. I mean, it's just a reality of that,
it's part of
that feast and famine type of feeling. So one thing I learned a lot from Matt out in Sonoma Strong, and it's something I take away, and if I could just throw it out there to everybody who's doing this, is to put back. Man, I just had COVID for 3 weeks. I did not work for 3 weeks. I have a savings that can take that hit 3 times. And, hopefully at the end of the next year, I can, it'd be 6 months. What's really weird though, is this month, we haven't had dip. We haven't had dip at all. Even though I've only worked a handful of days, we're already half as good as our best month. It's the type of jobs that come in, but I'm still prepared. If I was to get COVID again in the fast times, we can take that hit. Do you do things like that? Do you
Yeah,
put
we
that
have
to the
to. I
bank?
mean, I noticed it like I bootstrapped my business up front. I'm a very firm believer in good debt and bad debt. I
Yes.
believe in leveraging debt for a business. I know that everybody can't do that off the bat if you don't have that means and haven't set yourself up that way. But when I bootstrapped this, I mean, we had to. I think the first month I had my roll-off truck, I had got a flat from curbing it, and the guy who came to repair the tire actually ended up snapping the studs and ruining my whole wheel hub assembly, and just it caused an excess amount of damage. Fast forward 10 months down the road, our DPF system on our diesel truck went. That repair cost me north of $7,000 to fix right before winter. And doing that, juggling your life, your bills, your personal bills, your business bills and stuff like that, and then the non-foreseeable problems that come up, you have to be good at managing that, or at least have a means to cover yourself, whether it be a card, an emergency card, or something like that. But going back to what you said, reinvesting in yourself and your business is hugely important. I mean, we plan on scaling aggressively this year and the next year. Now that we're past that 2-year benchmark with the banks, we've set ourselves up financially to accept and focus on that growth for the next year or two. But you really got to have your ducks in a row if you're trying to make this a serious business. I know if some guys are just out with a truck and a trailer and it's cool extra money for them and they skim by, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's their goal. But in terms of actually running a well-operated machine, you need to have reserves. And I think that's in any investment or entrepreneurial thing. You need to have like emergency reserves, because it's not a matter of if it's going to rain, it will rain.
It is going to rain.
Yeah.
It is going to dump 20 inches of snow on you.
It's absolutely going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's just when.
Fast forward here. So you start with this 1-ton truck, and we already know you did the switch and go. So tell us where you are today. And
We're operating our switch and go as our junk truck. We don't rent out dumpsters that often. We really don't advertise it. We do it as like if we have an extra can, we'll residually rent it out. But we are operating that switch and go as our main truck at the moment. We do have a junk style truck like you see JRA build or anything like that is on order. But we're not seeing that truck for quite some time. I could have went with
buy from JRA.
No, we're not buying from JRA. I would love to work with Lee in that facet. He builds some great trucks and they offer a lot of great programs with JRA. We hope to expand more on some of the programs they do offer. Nice. I really tried to absorb as much as I could myself, from the website to our SEO to our ads. I see the value in paying someone professionally to do that stuff. In the beginning, though, I really want to keep as much money in-house as possible and wear as many hats as possible in the beginning until I reached the point where I needed to delegate work otherwise. So that should be on our list. But as far as the truck goes, we did not have JRA build it. There are several outfitters in our area that do build trucks. It's just getting them for a good price. And with the cost of steel and everything like that, there is a wait time for some people. But we kind of plan for doing this and starting the steps of that in the winter. So hopefully by the spring rush, we will have our other truck on the road, and we will start buying more dumpsters to kind of get into that dumpster area. Depending on who you talk to in the industry, they either go hand in hand together, or you should solely stick with one or the other. But for me, I like investments, and I see dumpsters almost like real estate. They're residually going to provide income. I don't have to do very much other than drop a can and pick it up and make sure they didn't put the wrong contents in them. So I look at those as assets. They are not going to cost me money to purchase them. They're only going to make me money. And that was another thing on the business journey that, I started life before I started a business. So not all the debt I took on was good debt, as in like my house didn't make me money. My truck at one point didn't make me money. Now the things that I try to buy or finance, I make sure that if the note's serviced, they're going to still be generating money. So they're not necessarily wasting money out of my pocket every month.
Man, that is so friggin' true. I want to get back to your switch and go thing. And I think I'm understanding, and pardon me if I don't, But so let's say you have two cans.
Yep.
So you're running it so you can have two crews or more. You drop off a can at a facility or a house or a facility, and you might have a crew going there, and then you have the ability to go work another job, correct?
Yeah, not every job's set up that way. It really depends on
Right.
the schedule. Like we get some very large commercial cleanouts and we get,
Sure.
the regular quarter load, eighth load jobs. Typically, if we're dropping a can somewhere, it's either because it's convenient for the removal, say
All
it's
right.
a large apartment, or an evictions or something like that. I do have the ability to have a crew on site and just fill that can and go do something else. It doesn't always geographically work like that with the service area we have.
Right.
But it does enable us to be moving all times. If I take that one dump truck away from a job that's like a 5 truck clean out, and they got to wait for me to go to the transfer station, wait at the transfer station, dump, come back, and they're just standing around and moving items outside, it's not the most efficient.
No.
And we still do have our dump trailer, which we'll throw in the mix when if need be. But mainly we just run that truck because I wanted to buy the piece of machinery that seemed the most expensive at the time for us, because from there on everything else would kind of be lesser. So like if I bought that dumpster truck first, it doubles as a junk truck. We don't have a ramp, but we are able to set it on the ground, on
Right.
certain jobs that need it. And from there moving forward, I don't want necessarily all my employees operating switch and goes. It is a very easy system and a great system, but for me, the liability with having employees that might not be sticking around for long term,
That's right.
I see some liability in dropping dumpsters, especially in inconvenient places. So as long as I had that truck and I could then buy dumpsters down the road, whatever I bought after that truck would be for the business, like the junk style dump trucks and things of that nature, where I trust my employees driving that a little more, and operating like that.
So speaking of employees, how does that work out for you as far as a whole? I mean, are they more of a liability or are they?
No, I mean, I have one full-time guy other than me. I'm still on the truck. So we head out a lot of times. And then we have, I'd say 3 to 4 part-time guys that just kind of when they're available or when we have a large job that demands, they'll come on. Spring and summer, we employ temporarily a lot of college guys. Fortunate enough that I network with enough people. They have younger siblings and, high school going into college and things of that, where during the summer, we have a good staff of guys that come on. Finding the right people and finding people of value is difficult. Like in any business after COVID, didn't seem a lot of people wanted to work or work for what they used to. So we have found ourselves paying oftentimes more than what the large franchises pay for our help. But trying to get a core team has been a challenge. I mean, hopefully we can iron that out in the next few months
Right.
and get a solid group of guys to run multiple trucks as the second one comes in. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I run with one really solid guy who's been with me for a while. I've had a few solid guys that stuck around in the beginning, but when you're starting, you don't have work just pouring in. So it's hard to keep those guys fed and happy. So that was a challenge, and it's still a challenge finding guys to work today. I'm a little bit more grateful because I do have a variety of people to choose and have on jobs if need be. And again, we're in the slow months anyways. So not all the guys that do the junk removal want to be shoveling snow and snow blowing the commercial lots we service. So,
It's
but I keep
difficult
everyone in my wheel.
because you're like, for instance, on your sweatshirt right there, you have your company name. And
Oh
so
yeah.
when you drive up to, I don't care who, and that company logo is on that truck, it is so imperative of who you have coming
Oh,
off the truck.
branding is everything. I mean, we have rain jackets, sweatshirt. We are a professional company. We are a company, that is going to compete in a market that other companies are worth millions and hundreds of millions. And presenting yourself as a company of that caliber is important.
Yeah.
We try to put our brand and our logos on everything, not in a gaudy way, but we want people to know. It's the same with Facebook. I get asked all the time from other guys in the community and on the Facebook groups, how much money do you guys see from Facebook ads? How do you guys get jobs from Facebook ads? I've never looked at Facebook ads as a lead generator in the sense. I look at it as a branding tool. I can flood Facebook with ads, and maybe one job will pay for what I spent all the ads on and we'll break even on it. But I want to embellish our brand in people's heads. So maybe they don't need my service right now, but when they do, they're going to remember seeing our ads or seeing our content, and they'll hopefully come to us next time, or when they do need the service.
That's called TOMA, actually, top of mind awareness.
Right.
And so it's an old radio. I used to be a radio talk show guy, but that is the most underestimated, and that's what I love about Joseph Martinez. There is he's always talking about branding yourself, and you're absolutely right. You want to be the first thing on people's minds.
Right.
It's kind of like a repeat customer, right?
Yeah.
Once you're in that Rolodex, man, you're going to be called over and over and over. Well, there's a lot of different types of Rolodexes out there, and that one that says, what is it? And then they look down and they say, oh yeah, it's Holloway, and I want to, because you're the first thing on their mind when it comes to junk removal, and you build that slow.
We do. I mean, we love Google. Obviously, Google's a great tool when you know how to use it correctly. But we spend a lot in the community too. I mean, we have numerous baseball organizations. We go pay for signage in the outfield. We get in with the newspapers, even though newspapers are kind of a thing of the past. This is the largest retiring force that the country or the world's ever seen as far as the baby boomers go. A lot of them still aren't savvy with phones. So we are in a few local publications. It may seem as a loss to some people, but for us, it works. What it costs us every month to run those ads still, it still puts money in our pocket and puts our name out there to a different demographic, people who might not see our stuff online.
It's funny you say that, because I'm here in southern Arizona, and it is, I left Heaven's Waiting Gate, back in Florida, where there's just this huge amount of baby boomers, which I am one. And then where I'm at now, oh my God, the town and place that I live in is 90% retirees.
Right.
And you're right about the phone. They call on dial-ups. They go, oh, I got your number from the paper, and that's the reality. And to miss that, and guess what? As far as spending capital, they have more spending money than anybody. And so you give them a fair, and I always say a fair price. I don't gouge anybody, but a fair price. It's 90%. Boom. Yes, we'll do that, because they have the capital. They're set in life, and you're not gouging them.
And another thing too, when it comes to that, is as much as this is a junk removal business, this is a sales business. Yeah. If you're not familiar with selling, or you don't know how to sell a customer or even engage, it's like, I feel like that's the biggest factor in this industry. You got to familiarize yourself with being able to sell people and sell your services. You don't need to rob them. You don't need to price gouge, but you do need to be able to communicate with, the customer directly. Sometimes, a realtor or someone in your network, or even sometimes the children of a customer who might be in an elderly situation.
All the time.
That you really have to be able to communicate with people to make money. And to just have a successful business in general.
So I'm guessing you're like about half my age, but which is really cool, by the way, because mentors come in all shapes, sizes, ages, and all kinds of stuff. And so, but a lot of people throw your generation out to the door, and I'm like looking into your generation all the time, and half of them are like, I don't understand. The other half, I totally get, man, because you're like cut just like I am. And it's I
feel like it has a lot to do with your upbringing and what you're exposed to. I mean, I definitely agree with both sides of that. There's hiring people from my generation, very difficult. Finding like-minded individuals, very difficult. But the ones who do hold a lot of value have a wealth of knowledge in different things, whether it's the internet, whether it's communication, workability, or just anything. I mean, there's two sides to that coin. It's the same with the older. I see the work ethic a lot more in the older generations, the understanding of the fundamentals. But you gotta be good at weeding that stuff out and figuring out who you're talking to and working with.
What was the biggest hurdle that you had to come across? Because you've worked for somebody your whole life, and then because I'm listening to you, Bill, and your business. I mean, I have a degree in business, and what you're saying, it's all like dead on. right? And
Yeah.
so I'm like listening to you. Where did you pick this up, and what, and how did you learn? How did you apply all this? And then what is this biggest hurdle that you've had to have?
I think our hurdles change, with the time. My biggest hurdle up front was diving into something that I never did before and relying on that to pay the bills. That was up in the beginning. I mean, that's the stuff you lose sleep over. You rack your brain. How am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to,
Yeah.
do all this stuff? I mean, that was a huge thing. Then it was, how are we going to get funding for bigger equipment? How are we going to grow? Where is this going? How are we getting certain? So it's always changing what the hurdle is. I mean, I feel like if you have the same problem all the time, you're not doing something right. You should be creating new
You
problems for
might be the
yourself.
problem.
Yeah, yeah. Like there should be different challenges. You should be solving those problems and moving on to new problems. Yeah, I don't, converting into the full-time thing, that was definitely huge. And just adapting to that. But as far as my business mindset goes, I mean, I really have just always known where I want to be in life and what I want out of life. I mean, I said it to my friend the other day. I tried to start a shop when I was in the automotive field, and the zoning, the overhead, all these factors would always come up into stalling me trying to open a shop. Yeah, and it was a scary thing. And when I started this, I was like, man, I probably could have picked up dog crap 10 years ago for a living and made a successful business out of it. And it's just doing it. Pardon my French, but having balls and doing it was and still probably is my biggest challenge. I'm a little more apt to it now, but that was like the biggest hurdle for me mentally, because you can know all the way someone else did something, you can know what the best options are or the best paths to take, but taking action and doing it is huge. I mean, I watched my father, who's a very good contractor, very knowledgeable guy, very smart guy, but his business mentality is very different than mine. And I watched that over years, where he was very happy being a one-man band and being the best at what he did, but wasn't very good at hiring people, wasn't very good at delegating work and compartmentalizing things. And, I just look at people who are successful or where I want to be at and try to implement what they do. I mean, I'm a firm believer that you're the average of the people you surround yourself with. So if you want to be successful, if you want to make a certain income, if you want to live a certain life, you need to familiarize yourself with how people go about doing that and what it takes to get there. And, I have a lot of mentors, a lot of people that I look up to. I'm very into investments, people like Grant Cardone and things like that. I listen to a lot. And just understanding what people, the lifestyle you're trying to have, who has it and what are they doing to have it. And that's really what you need to wrap your head around.
Some of your stuff is actually sounds a lot like Robert Kiyosaki, more my time.
I love it. Yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Same type. Yeah, it's the same type of wisdom that never changes.
The E-Myth, another great book.
Yep.
All those books. And if you're not a book reader, Audible's great. I find it hard to sit down and devote my time to reading a book, but I have a lot of time where I can pop on the headphones or listen to the Bluetooth and listen to some of those things. And there's a wealth of knowledge in all that stuff. And it could be 20, 30 years old and it's still applicable today. So
that's right. And Grant can scare you to death because I mean, that guy, you're talking balls. He probably has the biggest set. I don't know, man. There's nothing that stops him.
I'd love to see BlackRock buy him out at some point in time. That's like I see on the groups too. Another topic that comes up is whether, financing or paying stuff cash. You see people on the side of both of that. And, there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's really what your goals are. And I tried to explain this the other day to someone, but I'm in the middle of selling my house at the moment, and I'm going to be leveraging my freed up debt for business, purposes.
Sure.
And, someone said, why, you're crazy. Your house, you did this and that. It's, I said it before, my house makes me $0. So if you take a $250,000 loan out and your mortgage every month is $1,800 or $2,000 or whatever it is, and it makes you $0 every month. Yeah, you have a roof over your head. But if you were to go backwards and instead of taking out, you got approved for that loan already. So the bank already knows you're good enough to pay back on it. Instead of buying a house, pay the increased rent because it's not going to affect your credit score. You can go get a business loan And that 2,000 a month, if you're doing $1,000 a day or 500 a day even, or whatever the case, that money at your disposal is, and money's still very cheap right now. So that
That's
money at
good.
your disposal will enable you to aggressively grow your business if you're in that position. If you just want to be a one truck guy and it's you and your wife or you and your buddies and you're just doing that, that's totally, well and good. But if you want to grow a business, I feel the smartest and the quickest way is to learn how to leverage debt and understand the difference between asset and liabilities. I mean, that's a big, big thing.
That's what Elon Musk is doing. He's getting rid
Yeah,
of all his frivolous, what he calls frivolous stuff. He
right.
goes, and there is, I think you actually mentioned it at the beginning of the video, and that is good debt and bad debt.
Yeah,
There's debt that's going to make you money, and then there's debt that's going to take you money.
yeah.
And that is just the
With
reality
interest.
of business, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years? What are your goals?
My biggest goal with this company, I mean, we really don't want to be a national franchise. Regionally, we'd like to expand a little bit. But my biggest driving force right now is moving towards 95% recycle rate in-house. And not a lot of businesses are focusing on that model. I don't know, a lot of states do have landfills and stuff. Where I'm at, we don't have landfills and we don't have burning of trash. And they've actually just outlawed throwing away mattresses and box springs. So there are very high tipping fees, very high disposal fees for certain items. I mean, we're up to the 175 a ton, to 220 a ton. And some places even asking for a scale fee every time you get on the scale of $50. And that's just in our direct
Just to let
area.
you know real quick, I'm at $49 a ton.
Yeah, I envy you. I envy
Yeah.
you. When you look at the big picture, China used to buy a lot of our recyclables. We used to have more means of getting rid of waste. And I feel that it's only getting more difficult, especially in markets like ours, where we don't have the same capabilities to remove trash.
Right.
And the recycling of it is a whole nother beast. But I think we've worked a way that we're moving towards to recycle in-house. We don't necessarily want to be a recycling facility open to the public, but I think we can cut a lot of our costs down and actually make a couple bucks recycling. And again, it's not a model that a lot of businesses follow. Some people might not agree with it, but I think it's where everything in the waste removal industry is moving. And I'd rather get on top of it now.
Yeah, though that changes the way you load a truck. That changes the way you dump a truck. That changes everything. And that also would change especially at the beginning, of what you make per load.
Yeah, and also what we charge. We would like to keep our price point as high as possible. I don't think that I see it going backwards per se, but I think we'd have an edge over other competitors if we have a means to not have to spend what we have to spend in this area on disposing, and the tools we need to implement to be able to recycle it.
Yep.
It might not level off immediately, but the long-term gains of that, as far as what I've done out on paper, seem worth it to me. And I'm not the most green, environmentally friendly person. We definitely recycle, donate in our business, but me from a personal standpoint, I'm not like a recycling freak. But from a business standpoint, there is a lot of money in recycling, and even upselling. I know a lot of us resell items.
Yep.
We donate when we can. We do what we can to make as much and stretch our dollars as far as we can. But in that recycling area, I feel like it's an untapped resource, and us as America as a whole, we haven't fully figured it out as best as some of these other countries
Right.
that have it figured out. So if we can start to do it in-house, I think if more companies could see how to make, even if it wasn't making tons of money, if it was just eliminating a cost that's repetitive for you, you see it on the back end and start implementing it, I think.
So it's also part of your branding, right? I mean,
Right.
This is something that is near and dear to it used to be just the outlanding part of our society, but
Right.
actually that's part of society has grown exponentially. And so you're branding yourself to a segment of society that is going to use, if that's what you do, is going to use you regardless of cost.
Yeah, and I mean financially too. I mean, there is a ton of grants out there for recycling programs. So I mean, if you're
Get a
not
grant
necessarily
writer.
statewide, even there's a lot of grants out there that are available to people who do offer recycling services federally as well. So it's just another form of money. I mean, I give me the money. I want all the money. So we wanna figure out what we can do to utilize all that stuff.
I never even thought about what you're doing, and this is one of the reasons I'm doing these interviews, is because you guys are way ahead of us. Yeah, me, I'll just speak for myself. And so I'm thinking that you have to have a yard or something, a place to be able to stage this until they become with enough volume to go and make sense to dump it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so it goes right back to what I had talked about with unattainable goals and attainable goals.
yeah.
We are looking for a building. We actually want a structural building, which will be real estate in that sense. We lease land right now, where we don't really operate out of. It's more of a parking facility. We don't really operate any tearing things apart or storing things there. We do have some storage units for good items that we don't donate and we actually do resell.
Yeah.
But it comes down to our portfolio and what our business is. If we can get to the amount of trucks I want to be at and hitting a number that I want to be hitting every year, it'll make sense for us to start owning real estate because we want to keep our net worth up. We want to keep, we don't want to, it's great to lease and it's great to finance, but at some point you have to, kind of level up and gain some traction, not owe the banks all that money.
It's
And
all
if you
about
do,
profit, man.
yeah. So if we can get to the point where we can get the facility, and that's another issue around here in general, just the commercial industrial space in my market is crazy. I mean, Boston is nuts trying to find something that's worth it on paper. But if we can get to that point, it just adds to our portfolio, add to our capabilities of what we can do in-house. And we definitely will need a structure and all that. But that is all part of the business plan that we have
Right.
and that we're trying to follow. Whether all the stars align and we find the perfect building at the perfect time to facilitate all that stuff, great. Until then, we'll just keep following the steps we're taking to get to that point.
Yep.
And more often than not, I never believed in it before until I started having it happen to me, where like you can be as close to down and out as possible, but if you're staying the course and doing the right things and making an honest business, things come full circle all the time. I mean, there's been times we've been close on bills or slow with work, and I'm like, when's the work going to come in? And sure enough, it does. And I don't like living life that way. I never did. I like to have a pretty predictive
That's right.
idea of what's going on, but I've started to embrace it because more often than not, like I said, it just seems to happen for you when you're down and out, or when you have a tough month or a tough situation. Things do come around, so you got to stay after it. You got to keep feeding the beast.
I mean, literally until just days and days, not even a week, maybe. I was sick all year. And although I'm prepared and I'm going, okay, I can take this and, take it out of the bank. I'm covered. Guess what? The last few days have just been blessing after blessing, man. Boom. And I
Right.
can't explain it. All I know is I didn't stress. I wasn't like,
Right.
where's the money, man? Because I think when you start doing this, everything goes. I think it
Oh yeah.
takes your mojo, it takes your spirit, and you're not doing yourself any good. So instead of
No,
stressing out, I'm going, okay, man, I was shooting for February. Okay, I'm going to have to take out whatever and whatever. I'm not going to stress about it. I know the money's going to come. I just anticipate. I believe in it. I don't believe in magic because I'm working my ass off. I mean, it's not like yesterday I had a hot tub that was the worst hot tub I ever had to cut in my life. Well, it beat the heck out of me, man. But I'm still
Right.
I'm working it. And as long as I'm willing to step out and work it, dude, I think it's going to come. In
Yeah, there's
fact,
nothing wrong with a hard day's work. A hard day's work will teach you to be humble too. I mean,
oh, yeah,
man, you said a good thing about stress. You really do need to learn how to manage stress, not just in this industry, but just in life in general, because that negative energy and that time and energy you waste on stressing yourself out when you could be problem solving or just
yeah,
not, you really got to be aggressive about taking advantage and taking control of your own life. There's tons of things you can stress about day to day.
yeah.
There's an immense amount of things you're going to inevitably have to stress about at different points in life, but learning how to manage stress I think that's an attribute everybody should have, regardless of what you're doing, because it rarely ever benefits to stress about things
No, and if
excessively.
you're not good at it, think twice about going into business for yourself, because
Yeah,
if little lives of stress working for somebody else who takes care of so many problems up in the upfront, when you work for yourself, these are a daily type of thing. Things pop out, man. I mean, on a daily basis, and you just have to be able to handle those ups and downs, man. And there's good stress too, right? When you're just
oh yeah,
climbing, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it just falls, and
yeah.
you
No,
just
it's for
gotta
sure. I
handle
mean, you got to take the good with the bad anytime, and it's any bad situation, there's always some good to come out of it.
it.
So you just got to look forward to that stuff and not let it beat you up too much, because it can, man. It'll eat you from the inside out.
Before I let you go, since you did bring it up, you had mentioned two other prominent companies in your area.
Yep.
One I follow definitely on Facebook and am inspired by quite a bit. And you don't look at these guys as nemesis, you look at them as your peers. And I'm really impressed with that. And just go over that real quick, Bill, if you will, on the benefits of that versus, damn it, Lugaway is getting all this money, and how does he doing it? And you're instead of being pissed off about it or upset about it, you're looking at him as a peer, mentor, etc. Go ahead, just go.
Yeah, Steve Conroy with Lugaway and Billy McHugh with McHugh Removal Services. They're both in my direct market. I know Steve's very active on YouTube, and a lot of guys probably watch his stuff as much as Matt and JoJo. He's killing it, and we talk, at least once a week. Most times I probably bother him more than he wants to be bothered with how busy he is. But no, I mean, we've all started relatively around the same time. I think Steve was in there a few years before me and Billy McHugh got in. And I kind of met them along the way, just networking, because in the beginning, I mean, I was doing jobs for way too cheap up front. When I started, I had no idea. And as you network and talk to these guys, there's so much work out there. It's not worth it to look at them as competitors. Like there are dozens of junk removal companies in our area. I mean, those two guys are peers to me, as you put it, because they're successful, because they have a good business model, because they do great work, and we all learn from each other. And we've also bailed each other out at times. I mean, I've passed jobs off to both guys and vice versa, a few times over the year. And it might be because we're too busy, or it might not be a job we want, or whatever the case may be.
Out of the area, could be anything.
Yeah, we've literally paid each other at times for jobs that could have easily went in either one of our pockets. And same with the pricing. I mean, our value across the board should all be relatively close. I mean, whether they're not a part of your team or not, it's still a value across the board for junk removal. And I feel like when you're all on the same page, it's easier for you to find your own customers, but they're all going to know what to expect when the phone gets picked up.
Right.
They could call me, they can call Steve, they can call Billy, and we're all going to be relatively in the ballpark. At that point, you're really just worrying about your own customer base, and there's so much work out there. It's just worth it to have guys like that to reference, to ask questions. Hey, this transfer station's closed for the day. They're at capacity. Oh, thanks. You just saved me an hour of driving, or whatever the case. I mean, I'd rather have them in my corner. I'm sure as we all beef up a little bit, we'll get a little tighter on our friendship, but it's good.
I don't know if that will happen, because
it's a joke. I mean,
yeah,
they're both great guys.
exactly, because I think what you're building is a network, and it's what Mike Rowe talks about all the time.
Right.
The dirty jobs guy, right? He always talks about these blue collar people. They make more than, some of these guys are making more than doctors, lawyers, and
Oh yeah,
what
easily.
you call professionals, because they run their life as professionals. I mean,
Right.
thank God for Brian's, I think it was Scudamore from
Scudamore,
1-800. What an idea, right? Holy
Right.
smokes. Well, if he can do it, you can do it. You got 12 companies, let's say, in the Boston area that you're competing. It didn't stop you from opening business.
No, and there's a lot more than 12. I mean, and it's crazy too, because when I was looking and doing my research, I'm like, how the hell am I going to compete with? There's 1-800 Got Junk, there's there's College Hunks, there's Junk King, there's one called Junk Hall. There's these big national franchises. And when I first got their pricing, because that's part of your due diligence, you got to find out what they're charging. I almost threw up. When I saw what they were charging in my market, at least I was like, holy cow, like people are paying this much for some of this stuff. And that was like a real eye opener. But then when you call like the smaller guys like us, that we're still up there in price, but
Sure.
I'm grateful for them. I never bash those guys. I love when a franchise is in our market because they set the real tone and we kind of just follow suit where, okay, we know 1-800-GOT-JUNK has millions in advertising and marketing. So whatever people are doing, they're most likely calling them first just because of their branding. And when they hear that, yeah, it's $1,000 a load. All right, thanks. Then we're the next person they're going to call. We already know that they've got the sticker shock. So at least they're primed to know that they're going to be spending in some capacity that amount of money.
It's all about whether or not you can transfer that value to through their minds and their wallets. And that is the difference between like, yeah, 1-800-JUNK got all the whatever, but I guarantee you, they're not going out networking with the real estate agents. They're not going door to door. They're not meeting people, handing out cards, shaking hands. They got other people on the truck. They've already done their due diligence this way, but to dive into the heart of a city, a heart of a community is a complete different, that's how you compete.
And it'll land you. I mean, those jobs that you land too. I mean, there's been so many doors open for us just off of communication and being able to sell and speak to a customer. I mean, we've done some hotels that lead us into knowing these companies manage 500 buildings and where their primary source for their removals, or apartment complexes that's not the only complex they own or manage. They own actually 10 in the area, and so those little things that I can't speak for all the big franchises. They're all run independently by somebody in that capacity. They might network with those realtors. They might not. But the point was 1-800-GOT-JUNK doesn't have to. Their budget's so big. But when you can communicate with a customer and sell your product, there's so many doors that become open, even if it's just the neighbor seeing the truck in the driveway next door. There's a lot of doors being able to be open just by being able to communicate and sell. It's one of the biggest things I feel everybody should learn how to sell. If they're not good at it, if they're not good at talking on the phone or closing deals, they should find someone who is and take notes, because it can drive your revenue up substantially.
Last thing, do you believe in uniforms? Do you believe in clean cut? What is your deal?
We do. I mean, I don't press the guys on being clean cut. We all have beards for the most part. But no, no one ever shows up looking too raggedy. We do firmly believe in uniforms. Like I said, we have rain jackets, hoodies, t-shirts, all that stuff, hats. I think being uniformed and showing up in a branded clean truck and looking clean and presentable that's part of the sales. I mean, that's why they pay what they're paying for you to come there, is to look professional. And it is an important thing. There's guys that do operate in t-shirts that aren't, branded in a U-Haul rental truck. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you can afford and that's what you're doing, that's great if you can get those jobs. But I would work towards following what the big companies are doing right off the bat. I mean, the sooner you can do that, the more legitimate you're going to be taken as, and probably get a lot better quality customers.
Right. Well, Bill, I appreciate your time, man. I think I could talk to you for another hour. I really do appreciate your time, because I think it's important, not just for me, but for everybody who is a step lower or even a step higher, because there are people that aren't where you are as far as your financial thoughts and things that are going to pull off a lot of information off of this. And I really do appreciate your time, and wish you continued success. And I would like to maybe do this again down the road a little bit and see how far you've come.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested. And I wish you the same, and I hope your business does well and keeps growing. And I look forward to watching more of the videos too. You're doing a great job.
All right, brother. Hey, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.